Being based in London, members of the Applo's team frequently travel on the London Underground. In doing so, we often hear some variation of this famous announcement.
Mind the gap.
In seeing this gap between the train and the platform that somebody here at Applo's photographed, it's not hard to figure out why the powers that be at Transport for London are so concerned about, well, minding the gap. Sadly, such a tragedy unfolded on the 26th of May, 2020 when a passenger fell into the gap between the northbound Bakerloo line platform and the train from which he had just alighted at Waterloo Underground Station. Applo's will address this tragedy in greater detail in a future video, so we won't say too much about it now, but based on a subsequent investigation, the passenger was unable to free himself and the train departed with the passenger still in the gap, crushing him as it moved off. However, this tragedy serves as a segue for the subject of today's video, safety. Safety is a concept that everyone knows is important but do not often give too much of an afterthought. After all, when we fly on an airplane, take a train, or drive on a bridge, to name just a few examples, we assume that those in charge, from pilots and conductors to engineers, are highly skilled and professional. But disasters do happen, including the Interstate 35 bridge disaster in Minneapolis, Minnesota in 2007, or in 2023 the Titan submersible that imploded in the North Atlantic Ocean while searching for the Titanic. And those in charge must take responsibility. The inventor or entrepreneur is responsible for their products being safe and must try anticipating problems beforehand to head them off at the pass. For that reason, safety documentation can often overwhelm and intimidate any entrepreneur. So, in an effort to make it more comprehensible and less intimidating, Applo's will address safety in multiple videos. Today's video will start with 4 different questions. What is safety? What are common misperceptions? Does safety get more complex the bigger the product? And finally, how do companies address safety? What is safety? Safety pretty much means that the product functions the way it is supposed to, and that it will not do anything that could jeopardize the product's operation or anybody else's well-being. For example, it means that this London bus will not suddenly or unexpectedly veer out of control while being driven through central London. It means that this escalator in the Camden Town tube station will not suddenly stop or suddenly catch fire, or that this Boeing 737 MAX airplane about to take off will respond to pilot inputs and not suddenly pitch downward, unlike the 2 Boeing 737 MAX aircraft that crashed in late 2018 and early 2019. Second, what are common misperceptions involving safety? The Applo's team notices 2 main misperceptions, but if anyone out there can think of more, please get in touch with us so we can address it. Misperception number 1 is that the individual components on a product are not the inventor's responsibility. After all, if the components come from a third-party vendor, that specific vendor must ensure their products are safe. That is certainly true. However, when those individual components form part of a finished product, then safety becomes a shared responsibility, as anybody involved with the finished product becomes a stakeholder. A perfect example would be this United Airlines Boeing 777 aircraft. In February 2021, shortly after taking off from Denver, Colorado, the right-wing engine suffered a catastrophic engine failure with debris falling in some residential areas. Pratt & Whitney manufactured the engine, so they are no doubt partly responsible for its failure. But as the engine was a component of a Boeing-made airplane, Boeing too was also responsible. Finally, as United Airlines operated the aircraft, United too is responsible for servicing their airplanes so that they are safe to fly. The National Transportation Safety Board is still investigating. A second misperception that the Applo's team frequently encounters tends to be the attitude that their product is perfectly safe, that safety documentation doesn't apply. To that we can simply reply, first, no invention is foolproof. All products and inventions carry some degree of risk, regardless the improbable likelihood or minimal consequences, and to ignore it would be to their peril. Second, while being an inventor is fun, bringing your invention to market is also a responsibility, of knowing the hurdles to overcome, actually overcoming them as well as complying with legal requirements. And anybody who tries to market a product without doing it responsibly and more to the point legally, will simply create more problems for themselves in the long run. We will address potential risks of non-compliance in a future video. Finally, the common questions we get asked is, does safety get more complex the bigger the product and the more components it may have? Common sense dictates yes, as a product's components do not operate in a vacuum but rather have to work with each other. Take for example this Boeing 787 taxiing at London's Heathrow Airport. A Boeing 787 has over 2 million parts, and they need to function more or less together. For example, the hydraulics on an airplane are responsible for the landing gear, flight controls, brakes, and thrust reverses. Were the hydraulics to fail, it would impair the landing gear as well as the brakes from bringing the aircraft to a completely safe stop. And last, how do companies address safety? First, there is extensive testing, in which inventors must repeatedly demonstrate that their product works the way it is supposed to, as well as identifying specific problems that appear during testing. Inventors must also compile safety documentation including a risk-benefit analysis, which is pretty much what it sounds like, as well as a hazard analysis in which companies list a product's potential malfunctions as well as corrective actions for each problem. Being open with regulators is absolutely essential. Many companies too must also hire an independent company or group to certify that their product is safe. Again, however, Applos will discuss all this in greater detail in future videos. So how can the Applos team assist? Applos Device Regulatory Consulting UK Limited helps companies interested in getting regulatory clearance for their products, but without the bloated fees and intimidating jargon. We can help with advising clients on material to include in a submission, reviewing submissions, doing a gap analysis, and compiling regulatory documentation from scratch as well as more. We explain clearly and concisely so as not to intimidate or overwhelm anyone. From our London-based offices, we work with companies all over the world. Contact us today to learn more about what we do, your needs, and how we might be able to assist. Please let us know too, what questions do you have? What would you like the Applos team to address? Please also subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, as we are constantly posting more videos. And thank you as always for watching.